Dragonslayer's Academy, Book 1, Chapter 4. Wiglaf checked his map by the light of the full moon. Yes, this had to be the place. Dragonslayer's Academy. In truth, this is not what I expected, Wiglaf muttered. Ach yea, Daisy agreed. Wiglaf and Daisy stood at the edge of a moat filled with greenish, foul-smelling water. It reminded Wiglaf, in many ways, of Malwina's cabbage soup. A rickety drawbridge led over the water to a gatehouse set in the middle of the broken-down castle wall. A tattered blue banner waved above the door. Bold letters on it spelled out D.S.A. Wiglaf drew a deep breath and started across the drawbridge. Daisy trotted at his side. Wiglaf pulled a chain by the gatehouse door. A bell sounded from deep within. After a time, the door cracked open. A short man with big eyes stared out at the travelers. He held a torch in one hand. "Yes?" he said. "I am Wiglaf, sir," Wiglaf offered. "I am here to study." "Welcome to DSA," the man said, opening the door. Wiglaf saw that he wore an apron. "Odd time to arrive. Midnight," the man went on. "And school started 2 weeks ago, but no matter. First things first." He held out his hand. 7 pennies, please." "Alas," Wiglaf said, "I have no pennies." The door began to close. "Wait, sir," he called. I have half a cabbage dumpling." The door banged shut. "I'm a willing worker," Wiglaf added. "I wash dishes and—" The door opened a few inches. The man stuck his head out. "You're skilled at washing dishes?" he asked. Wiglaf nodded. "Very skilled." "Well, that suits me better than 7 pennies any day." The man opened wide the door. Come in, come in. I am Frypot, school cook, and former dishwasher." "Oh, I thank you, kind sir," Wiglaf exclaimed. "But say not a word of this to Headmaster Mordred," Frypot warned. "He will put the thumbscrews to me if he finds out." "Not a word, sir," Wiglaf promised. Then he and Daisy started through the door. "Hold up now," Frypot cried. "No pigs allowed." "But, sir," Wiglaf began, "this is no ordinary pig. Just listen. Daisy, say hello to the kind man." "Alohe, Ipot Frey," Daisy said. "Zounds!" Frypot exclaimed. "A pig that speaks pig Latin!" Frypot knelt down next to Daisy. "Alohe, Iggy Pay," or "Elohe, Iggy Pay," he said slowly and loudly. "Oh, I shall make you a comfy pallet in the hen house. Yes, just as soon as I sign in our new student." Then Frypot lit the way through the gatehouse, across the castle yard, and up a stone stairway into the crumbling castle. Just inside the door, Frypot stuck his torch into a holder on the wall. Then he sat down at a desk and opened a thick book. "Full name?" he asked. "Wiglaf of Pinwick." "Age?" "This shall be my 12th summer." "Skills?" "Washing dishes," began Wiglaf. "Slopping pigs, raking dung." "I meant any skills that might be useful in dragon slaying," Frypot said. Wiglaf thought for a moment. "Nothing comes to mind," he answered. "Class 1, then." Frypot shut the book. He opened a cupboard and took out a blue tunic and a helmet. White letters on the tunic spelled out D.S.A. He gave them to Wiglaf. "Your uniform," he said. "The kitchen's that-a-way," Frypot added, handing Wiglaf the torch. You can start on the dishes while I settle your pig." Then the cook led Daisy toward the door. "Kay, Iggy Pay," he said, "and tell me how you came by your enchantment. I never cook bacon, you know. Well, hardly ever." "What a poor sword!" Wiglaf heard someone exclaim. He half opened one eye. He had not had much sleep. Frypot had not told him how very, very many dirty dishes there would be. Now, Wiglaf saw two boys in DSA tunics standing at the foot of his cot. One was sandy-haired and plump. The other had straight brown hair and a serious face. He was holding Shorekill. "Have you ever drawn this sword in battle?" the boy asked. "No," Wiglaf answered. "Have you sliced off anyone's head with it?" "Of course not!" Wiglaf exclaimed. "And I'll wager you've never killed a dragon with it either." "No," Wiglaf admitted, "but the sword is called Shorekill," he added, "so perhaps I shall. I am called Wiglaf." "I am Eric." The boy tossed Shorekill back onto Wiglaf's cot. "I sleep here." He pointed to the far side of the room. Wiglaf turned to see one of the many lumpy cots just like his own. On the wall above it hung a certificate which read, "Sir Lancelot Fan Club." Next to that hung a tapestry. It showed a knight plunging a sword into a dragon. Blood gushed from the dragon's side. "Yuck," thought Wiglaf. "I have not yet killed a dragon," Eric was saying, "but soon I shall. Not for the gold, but to rid the world of evil." "I want—" "Pray save it, Eric," the plump boy cut in, "or we shall miss breakfast." He turned to Wiglaf, adding, "Don't worry, we are not all so eager as Eric." Wiglaf put on his DSA tunic and helmet and followed his roommates to a huge dining hall. Boys of all sizes sat at long wooden tables labeled Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. A big boy was tossing slices of burnt toast through the air. Other boys punched and poked and pinched each other for the honor of catching them. The sight made Wiglaf feel a little homesick. Wiglaf got in line and picked up his tray. "What's for breakfast?" he asked Eric. "Fried eel on toast," Eric replied as he took a heaping plateful. "Eel?" Wiglaf cried. Eric nodded. "Mordred says eating eel is part of our training," he explained. "Dragon hunters must learn to live on what can be found near a dragon's lair." The boys carried their trays to the Class 1 table. Then Wiglaf watched as Eric scooped up a spoonful of greasy eel and eagerly stuffed it into his mouth. "Oh!" Wiglaf groaned. "How do dragon hunters do it?" The plump boy leaned over toward him. "They don't," he whispered. "Eels live in the castle moat, so they do not cost Mordred a cent. That is the real reason we're served eel so often." "How often?" Wiglaf asked in dismay. "Too often," the boy replied. "By the way, I am Angus." Wiglaf stared in awe. "Angus the Avenger?" "Oh, you saw the notice." Angus smiled shyly. "Mordred only made me sound fierce to attract fierce pupils to his school." "Then you never killed a nest of dragon young?" Wiglaf asked. Not exactly," Angus admitted. "I stumbled over an old dragon nest in the forest once and squashed some rotten eggs. Whew, did they ever stink!" He waved a hand in front of his nose. "It took weeks to get the slimy goo off my boots." "Then Torblad the Terrible and Baldric the Bold?" Wiglaf began. Angus shook his head. "I'm afraid my Uncle Mordred sometimes stretches the truth." "The headmaster is your uncle?" Wiglaf exclaimed. "Imagine! So has anybody here ever killed a dragon?" "Not yet," Eric piped up, "but soon someone shall, and that someone shall be me." Clang, clang. A bell sounded, and Eric slurped up the tail of his eel. Finish up, Angus advised Wiglaf. Stalking a fire breather class begins in 5 minutes, and it's way over in the East Tower. Wiglaf stared at his fried eel on toast, now cold and gray. Then he left it on his plate and hurried after Angus and Eric.